He is a mystery wrapped in a puzzle. And if we stop to consider him at all, what we behold is disturbing. Sometimes disturbing is good. There are times when we need to be and should be disturbed. The person of Judas Iscariot is one of those times. His surname is misleading. Iscariot is likely a corruption of the Latin sicarius, meaning murderer or assassin. The Sicarii were one of the most radical Jewish groups seeking independence from Rome. Some of them were terrorists. Jesus had chosen him as one of his inner circle, and we can always wonder about that. As something of a fanatic, he probably appeared unusually sincere and dedicated. He spent 3 years with Jesus and the others. 3 years listening to and watching the most compassionate, caring, sympathetic, honest leader who ever walked the earth. No one was more understanding. No one ever demonstrated more patience. Never was forgiveness modeled more graciously. And he didn't get it. It didn't touch him. It all bounced off of the armor plate of his soul and rolled away. He was in the presence of great grace, all he would ever need, and he missed it, all of it. He watched Jesus heal the blind, heal those cursed and blighted with leprosy, their rotting flesh made whole. He watched Jesus heal the crippled, the paralyzed, some who hadn't been able to stand up or take a step for years. He had a front row seat when epileptics were cured, never to roll and scream and thrash about ever again. He watched Jesus embrace the psychotic, the deranged, and deliver them to sanity. But he didn't get it. It didn't touch him. It all bounced off of him and made no difference for him. He actually would have joined in with the other 11 as Jesus devoted himself to those no one else was willing to help. The outcasts, the outsiders, the poor, the imprisoned, the naked, the lonely, the sick, the hopeless and homeless. Those who had nothing to offer to anyone with which to request or receive relief and rescue. They had nothing. They were nobody. They had nobody except Jesus of Nazareth, who loved them even though they were not lovable, who embraced them even though they were untouchables. Judas saw it all, up close and personal. He was unmoved, untouched. It all bounced off of him and rolled away. Why? Why so resistant to grace, so blind to grace, so untouched and unmoved by great grace? Why was his own heart and the needs of his heart so inaccessible to him? Why was his own tender terrain so off limits? Why was that compartment of his soul that was capable of compassion for himself and others so closed off? He needed help, so much help, and all he needed was right there for him, day after day. And he missed it completely until it was too late. We could simply assume he was just no good. I'm afraid there are such people. It is said that about 4% of our population at any one time are sociopaths or psychopaths, that to one degree or another they are incapable of empathy. They have no conscience, no sense of moral responsibility. Everything is always and only about them. Maybe that explains Judas. Except that when it dawns on him, really dawns on him, what he has done, he is overwhelmed with remorse. His guilt and his grief at his own treachery is so unendurable, he cannot bear to live with it. So he hangs himself. And there echoes down to us those terrible words of Jesus. Better for this man that he had never been born. Consider the contrast between Judas and Peter. Peter denied Jesus 3 times, and when his weakness, cowardice, lack of loyalty sinks in, he weeps bitterly. But he is later able to accept forgiveness. He allows himself to be re-embraced and reintegrated into Christ's flock, and he is humbled and healed in the bargain. Judas remained untouchable by grace, unmoved by grace. When he most needed forgiveness, was so in need of help, it bounced off of him and rolled away. There was no place in his soul where forgiveness could find a foothold. He could not get past his guilt. His remorse blinded him to grace. So he destroyed himself. A tragedy for him and a warning to us. How much better do you and I really do in the presence of great grace? Frankly, I have not found that there's much that comes to us directly from God. Mostly the grace of God reaches out to us from other people in our lives. There's usually a lot of help around us, often all we need. But we are the gatekeepers of our own hearts, minds, souls. The lock on the gate is on the inside. It is a combination lock. Maybe 3 or 4 numbers that must be turned in the right order. Perhaps like your old high school locker, if you can remember back that far. We have to, over time, learn the combination that will unlock the door to our own hearts so that we can allow grace to enter and change the way we think and feel about ourselves. Judas Iscariot never learned the combination that would have unlocked the door of his heart so that Christ's grace and forgiveness could have entered. Thankfully, Peter did. Many of us, maybe most, won't see 50 again. Our lives are more than half over. If we have been too unforgiving with ourselves up to now, too strict or unreasonably demanding, we cannot get those years back. They are gone. So, enough already. there is still time for us to learn the combination of the lock on the door of our hearts so that we can open ourselves to grace, mercy, and forgiveness. Jesus once said, "Behold, I stand at the door and knock." But the lock on our door opens from the inside, and Christ will not break the door down. But he does knock. I think perhaps louder sometimes than at others. I need to listen more carefully and hear. Perhaps some of you do also. I wish all of us very well. This morning's